channel dollars through our local economies to meet existing market demands and reduce the social problems that we have right now, as well as prevent new problems in the future. And there are plenty of other examples like that. For example, one problem that we have as a nation, and we even hear, is waste handling and unemployment. So even with all the talk about recycling, we realize that there's lots of recyclable stuff that ends up still getting incinerated or going into landfills. Many municipalities' diversion rates, for recyclable materials can be abysmally low. That's all over the country, not just in North Carolina, just to make sure you know that. And so where often is much of this waste being handled? It's being handled in poorer communities around. And so and the issues around that, in terms of public health and poverty are well known at this point. So in Europe, there's a model called an eco-industrial park where it's either a collection, it's always a collection of business, but in different cases, either the waste of one company becomes the raw material of another, or recycled materials are used specifically to be the raw materials, for value-added products. So some of the things that you can make from some of this stuff, ripping apart sheetrock and turning it into other stuff, taking old plastic and pushing it together and making railroad ties, all of these type of things. And the idea is to create local markets and incentives for recycled materials to be used as raw materials for manufacturing. And we actually did a proposal when I was working with Sustainable South Bronx. We did a feasibility study specifically to do one of these on this huge piece of land, 20-some acres in the South Bronx, that had barge and rail access. You were taking trucks off the road, and all in all, using so much of the recyclable waste in our communities so that we could employ lots of people, through this business development. Unfortunately, our city decided at the same time that they thought that piece of land would probably be better used for a 2,000-bed jail. It's sort of talk about a pathway, directly, from poverty into prisons. And fortunately, the city came to its senses and decided to abandon that plan for the jail, which is great. But they also haven't officially decided to take up, the eco-industrial park yet either. But we're still very happy that they decided not to do that particular project. Another problem that we have in this country is unhealthy food systems and attendant unemployment. So working class, poor and rural Americans are not benefiting economically from our current food system. It relies too much on fossil fuel-based transportation, chemical fertilization, and also fossil fuel-based fertilization, water as well as refrigeration, and mega agricultural operations. And we heard about the mega hog farms and the swine lagoons that are prevalent in Duplin and Sampson County and other places like that. We know that the kind of toxic impact that has on both our land as well as our waterways, and not to mention our health as well. And it also produces what we now know is a fairly unhealthy product that costs us billions in terms of health care and lost productivity as well. Now, I know that urban agriculture is a huge buzzword right now, but it's mostly community gardening. And that is a really wonderful thing in terms of community building and really creating, access, for people to come together and be a part of a community and actually do. So that's really, really important. But it's not particularly substantive at all in terms of food production or job production. And the numbers are just not there. Part of my work now is actually laying the groundwork for integrating urban and rural food systems to benefit everyone. We plan to hasten the demise of the 3,000-mile salad, because right now, pretty much most of the stuff that we're eating, no matter where, especially if we're anywhere on the East Coast, has probably traveled thousands of miles to get to your plate. And also had like chemical and petroleum-based fertilizers on it, which is very appetizing. I'm sorry to just be talking like this as you're eating, but it's true. And so there's a reason why, we want to create local, truly local food systems, to number one, to support the regional growers that are out there and help them because they can't grow, 24/7 and 365 days a year. But if there are their partners who are actually in cities, and you could create indoor growing facilities that allowed people to at least meet some of the institutional demand for food production, some type of produce locally. So it's being grown pesticide and herbicide free, and you're creating and aggregating a mass of produce specifically for that metropolitan's institutional produce needs. Imagine the type of jobs that can be created around that. And so we're working to create a national brand of urban grown produce that will actually allow that kind of relationship to develop between urban and rural growers to meet the demands for that type of food. And it really will support seasonal farmers year round. And we are so excited about the possibility that the goal to meet the demand for whether it's hospitals or schools or daycare centers, and we could produce this network of local and regional jobs as well. I like to call all that stuff, whether it's, agriculture, urban agriculture, or, doing eco-industrial parks, or even learning how to do different types of, stuff around stormwater management. That I call it smart infrastructure. And how we manage our built environment affects the health and well-being of people each and every day. All municipalities, rural and urban, pay the operational costs of infrastructure, such as stormwater management, waste disposal, energy demand, as well as the social costs of unemployment, dropout rates, incarceration, and the impacts of various public health crises. Smart infrastructure really can provide cost-saving ways for municipalities to handle both infrastructure as well as social needs. So we want to shift systems, that open doors for people who were formerly tax burdens to be part of the tax base, taxpayers, for many reasons, but mostly because it's actually cheaper to do that as a society. Imagine a national business model that creates local jobs and smart infrastructure to improve local economic stability. Just imagine that. That your needs, infrastructure and otherwise, were being taken care of by the municipality, by people who were living in that municipality. Your friends and neighbors. I mean, that's the kind of thing that I'm hoping you could see a theme, like if there's a problem, there's a solution. But I think that these examples kind of indicate a trend that, I haven't created it, but it's not happening by accident. I've just been noticing it as I travel around this country, that people are really interested, in this. And the good news is that I think it's really growing, and that we all need to be invested in it for our own goods, for our own self-interest. And I believe that it is an essential pillar, to this country's recovery. And I'm calling it hometown security.